What's going on, wrestling fans? Welcome into Near Falls with D Hall, a wrestling podcast, episode number 71. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about and with a bunch of different college coaches from across the area at the Division 1, 2, and 3 level. Super excited to release this, guys. It's been a lot of work, a lot of fun talking to all these different coaches from around the area. Super excited to get into it. But if you haven't already, go back, check out my long form interviews that I released this summer. Joe Marcara, Mackenzie McGuire, Ty McGeary, and just recently Rob Walker, who I just sat down with, episode number 70. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, go back and check out those long form episodes. I really enjoyed having those guys over. And coaches, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, taking time out of your busy schedule this time of year. I know it's a lot, sitting down and talking about your squad. But yeah, man, a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy this edition of the NCAA preview, brought to you by Switch Custom Apparel. Okay, joining me now on the call, we have head coach of Lake Erie College, Boomer Fetchko. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing really well indeed. Thank you so much for coming on and sitting down and talking to me a little bit about your squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me on and what you guys are doing. I think it's great.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So let's get right into it. Lake Erie College, man. First of all, you guys are the Storm, right? Does the name fit the college up there? Is the weather a little crazy up there?
It can be at times, but hey, we love it, so we make it work, right?
Yes, for sure. I know that the winter up there gets a little wild, for sure.
No doubt.
So moving on into your squad here, how's your off-season program going this year?
Really well. We had 2 weeks off after the NCAA tournament. Guys just kind of take a break, obviously physically, heal up, any bumps, bruises, some guys, some injuries, and I think along with that, even more importantly, mentally, just give them a break. Right. So had 2 weeks off and then got back into a good, kind of training cycle, lifting and staying on the mat just a few days a week. So we had about half the guys train freestyle and Greco. We do have a club, Lake Erie Regional Training Center. So we had about half the guys doing that, and the other half, just focusing on folk style, and then we took actually two guys, Carson Richards and Jack Haskin, out to the U.S. Open U20 division out in Vegas. So that was really good. Both performed pretty well, going 2-2. So, that was at the end of April. And then, school was done actually for us before May. So it was done really early. We had probably about 8 guys continue to train through the month of May for U23s out at Spire.
Nice.
Guys wrestle out there, so that was good. And then we had about 8 or 9 guys stay out over summer, of our returners, stay out over summer and train, multiple days a week. So that was really good. So I was really, really happy with the amount of guys that stayed out, trained, got on a good schedule, showed up all the time, training at a high level. So was really, really pleased with that. And you saw the gains that they made, right?
No doubt. So you spoke of some of those guys that you took to U20s, and you're really pushing on the freestyle circuit as much as you guys are on the folk style scene. Through this off-season program, has any leaders emerged for you?
Absolutely. I think just obviously, on paper, we have 7 returning national qualifiers, right? So, and 3 of those guys are All-Americans. So those guys right out the gate, obviously are doing a good job of leading, just by their success and, their work ethic, right? So that's huge. A couple guys that kind of come to mind, again, obviously all those national qualifiers, right? But, a guy that comes to mind is Jack Haskin right out the gate, 157 pounder. He really had an awesome summer of training. You really saw him develop, and he kind of, stepped into a leadership role this year already. And a lot of guys look up to him. So really happy with him and what he brings, as a leader to the program. And then I think a guy that's kind of stepped in as a leader and maybe wasn't expecting to is Corey Gammett. He was an All-American 2 years ago for Lake Erie. And then last year he was out due to surgery. He was out the entire year. So, he was around, but, he wasn't training, he wasn't wrestling or anything. And he finally got back on the mat, was allowed to after the season and things like that, and progressed really nice through his therapy and rehab and all that. And he put together an awesome summer, training with those guys and everything. And, obviously when you have a guy who has had the success that he has had, right. And then you start training with him, it's not hard to figure out why he's been successful. Right. So I think, guys kind of gravitate towards him. He's a little bit older. He's got a little bit more experience. So guys are kind of gravitating towards him. Ryan Wayner was a captain for us last year. He's a guy that I believe is in his 5th year. He actually didn't have to come back, chose to come back, because, he wants another chance, another opportunity, and loves this program. So when you have guys that are doing that, Brylan Klaus is another one. Didn't have to come back at 197, returning national qualifier. Wanted to come back. Loves the team, loves the program. When you have guys like that, it's easy for guys to gravitate towards those guys, especially when they're doing the right things on and off the mat.
No doubt. Next question or topic I have for you. I like to ask this, man, because I feel like this is an ever-changing question over the last few years, even. Recruiting, man, what does that look like for you guys? It's different now more so than it's ever been, right? The transfer portal is running wild, and these high school kids they're really, really good. So what's that look like for you guys?
It's always evolving, right? Social media is huge nowadays, right? You see graphics and stuff like that. And so, you got to keep up with the times. I think the biggest thing is when, as a coach and my assistants, right, we know what we're looking for. We want guys that obviously, fit the academic profile of the institution, but then they got to fit the mold of the program. And we're very selective on our recruiting. And we do our research, and we really take the time to build that relationship with, the prospective student athlete, their high school coaches, their club coaches, their families, everybody. We reach out to a lot of people when we're recruiting someone and ask questions, right? Because, we do think that, let's be honest, we're not perfect. Okay. No place is, but we're a perfect fit for the right kid. And I've said this since, I've gotten the job last year, right? When I got the job, I really didn't know what to expect with the guys, and let's be honest, they didn't know what to expect with me. And I found out really quick that, and I've said this, this is the best group of kids I've ever coached. They're just outstanding, kids. And I'm really blessed to be a part of the program. And, our culture is really what, helps us thrive. And so they have to, when you're recruiting prospective student athletes, they have to fit that culture. So when I say we're selective, we are, and so, and I think obviously you're always going to have some needs, right? As far as weight classes and stuff like that. And so you're trying to fill some, maybe some gaps or add some depth in some areas. And we've done that over the years. And, it's a lot of fun when you have a culture that we have, and guys are going in and scrapping hard and working, to the level that they do. So we just got to keep it going.
No doubt. All right. So what are some of the coaches that are helping you lead the charge this year?
Yeah. So John Penfold is a grad assistant. He's in his 2nd year. He's another guy. He was a grad assistant for me last year. He did not have to come back. Like he graduated with his master's last year. He started another one, and now his brother, James, is a 2-time All-American for us. Right. And James is in his last year. So, obviously wanted to stick around, to help his brother, of course. Right. Yep. But John's done an awesome job. We also recently hired Cedarian Perry. He was an All-American for Eastern Michigan. Yep. A couple years back. So, he just got into town a few months ago. So he's been helping out. He's another graduate assistant. and then I have 2 volunteer assistants, and Andrew Bearden, and he's done a great job, really with a lot of administrative stuff, recruiting, fundraising, things along those lines, and some social media stuff. And then Chris Draghi as well. Chris is another volunteer assistant. He was an All-American for Lake Erie a couple years back, and he's actually still fighting in MMA, and so he's still training. So he comes in a couple days a week to wrestle with the guys, which is great.
That's awesome, man. Nothing like a little toughness to get on the guys, right?
That's right. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Next question I have for you. I like to get into this, man. Schedule. What's that look like for you guys, and how do you guys build? Because let's be honest, right? It kind of all boils down to the end of the year with this sport, right? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I made a big change from last year. Last year when I got the job, the schedule was already set in stone. There were some things that I really liked about it, but there were some big challenges too, and some things that, on paper it looked good, but let's face it, injuries happen, skin infections happen, life happens, and so I really kind of had to wanted to make some changes. So I personally, I think the season's a little long, and it's actually a week longer this year due to leap year. So I actually took the first weekend off. So I just thought it was best, give us an extra week of training, getting our weight down, getting in shape, making sure we're ready to go. But we're going to start off in November with 2 opens at Case Western, and then at Findlay. And so kind of how I'm handling that is, I'm not a big fan of wrestle-offs, personally. If I go and I beat you, does that mean I'm a better wrestler? Not really. It means like we wrestle every day and I just figured out how to beat you, right? So I want to see who performs better, right, in competition. So kind of letting those opens the first month of the season dictate some things, right, determine some things. And then if we need to do a wrestle-off after that, we will. And then after that, really kind of what I wanted to do was, we have an older team. I talked about Ryan Wayner being in his 5th year, Brian Klaus in his 5th year, James Penfold in his 5th year, Corey Gamet 5th year, Christian Small 4th year. College wrestling's hard. You do it for that long, it's really hard, right? So kind of built it around them a little bit. They've been through the grind. They have the experience, right? So, we start off in December with a quad with Mercier, Scannon, and Fairmont State at home. So that'll be good. And then we're going to have the Midwest Classic in the middle of December out at UIndy, which is great. And then we're actually going to national duels first weekend in January. So we're really excited about that. That's something that's been circled on the calendar for a long time. And then regional duels after that over in Tiffin. We have our conference championships at the end of January then. And then a couple dual meets, hosting West Lib and Tiffin at home. And then Findlay at home as well. So there's some off weekends in there, time for some guys to heal up, things like that. So I believe we're at 11 or 12 dates, competitions. So a little bit less this year, trying to keep guys healthy and making sure we're peaking at the right times, for the right competitions. So I think when you make a schedule, you have to take into consideration, your guys, right? And what's going to benefit them the most and get them on the podium, if not the top of the podium, in March.
For sure. Next question I have for you, do you guys have any streaming options for your matches?
Yeah, so we actually, Coach Bearden is kind of in charge of that. And so he's had a deal with Zeb Miller for the last few years, I believe.
OhioCast, yeah, man.
Go OhioCast, yep. So Zeb comes out and has done that. And so he'll continue to do that. That's something that him and Coach Bearden kind of had before I even got there. And so that kind of just, we kept that, right? So Zeb will be out for our home ones. And then our away matches, a lot of places, a lot of schools have it on their school streaming, things like that, Flow, Track, so pretty much, with the technology we have nowadays, right, parents are able to watch, pretty easily.
No doubt. Yeah, it's definitely come a long way. If COVID has taught us one thing, it's that we can use technology to our advantage, no doubt.
Right, absolutely.
All right. Last couple questions I have for you. Women's wrestling, what does that look like for your program?
It's not something that there's been a lot of discussion about, to be honest with you. We're not we're not there yet, obviously. I think women's wrestling is arguably the fastest growing sport in the country right now, and it's awesome, right? Because it's providing so many women with opportunities that they did not have before, right? If you wanted to go wrestle in college, there just wasn't a lot of options. And now,
Like a little handful.
Right now it's what, doubled, tripled, quadrupled, whatever it is, which is great, so it's providing these opportunities for them. So it's awesome. It's something that, hopefully, will continue to grow. It's just not something that, has really, been brought up at Lake Erie yet, as far to my knowledge. But hopefully, we'll hop on board, in the near future with that. Because I think it's important.
No doubt. Okay. Last question. And this is a new one Marky slipped in. I don't even know if I sent it to you, but I like it. You have an older group, and I know that at least when I wrestled in high school, and the older guys like to have a few games and different things that they like to do for warm-ups in the wrestling room. Do you guys have any?
Yeah, so they call it ass ball. It's basically it's basically just like hacky sack combined with dodgeball, right? I actually won my first game in 2 years last week.
Go.
So yeah, they might have gave it to me. I don't know, but I'm gonna stick to my story and just say I won.
That's right.
But yeah, no. So they, I let them kind of do that, before practice. It's fun. It gets them in a good mood, right? They're laughing, smiling, have a good time. And then as far as our warm up goes, I try to let them do their own thing. I'll give them 8 to 10 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever it is, on their own. Some guys, they like to do their own thing, and that's fine. Whatever it takes for them to, get their heart rate up, break their sweat, get their mind right.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's important. So I think, it's important sometimes to maybe control some things, but at the same time, I think you got to give these guys a little bit of independency from time to time, and so that way they can figure out what works best for them. So yeah, the warmers, I try to let them kind of do their own thing, so.
I love it. Good stuff, man. Last question I have for you, or not even a question, anything or anyone you want to shout out before you leave you go?
No, just looking forward to the year, honestly. Like I said, a great group of guys, and, I think we've got an opportunity to do something real special. And so, they've been doing a great job of training and living the right lifestyle. So I think, we're putting ourselves in position to accomplish, what we want. So just looking forward to a great year.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate you coming on and hanging out with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.